This is Dan here with Vagabond Buddha. I made a recording yesterday that I think is something you should listen to. Normally on this channel I just talk about travel, but the most significant thing in my life is freedom, and it's a higher level of consciousness which gives me peace in my life, and so it's a freedom beyond geography. There's a freedom beyond geography. Anyway, take a listen, see what you think. Thanks for listening. If you turn out to be interested in this topic, then click the link in the notes below this YouTube video to get a copy of a book I wrote on this subject, a free book called I Am Happy. Okay, enjoy. Most of my life, I woke up every day and I had a mind, which I still do, and the mind told me, which it still does, that what my name is and what I know about the world and who my parents and family are and what is the correct way of being in the world and what are the answers to a successful life, and it still does that. And in that respect, every healthy human being on the planet has a mind that's collecting data, it's listening, it's filtering, and it's coming up with a winning formula. And this is self-evident because almost every moment, most humans are thinking something through, some problem in their life, something that needs to be solved. They're concentrating on something they're doing, and so that is the human condition, if you will. We perceive a mind in thought. We not only have the thoughts, but we perceive it. We're watching the thoughts at the same time we're having them. Some of us don't know we're watching the thoughts. We think we are the thoughts. We think we are our thoughts. And so the middle level of consciousness is when you begin to, when it first occurs to you that you really aren't your mind, but you are both the thought that you are your mind, and you are listening. You are listening to the thought that you are your mind. And so that's the second step up the consciousness ladder. And the nice thing about the second step, and not everyone takes it, not everyone sees that distinction while they're alive. But if you've had that opportunity, if you've had that grace of being in a place where you can listen to your mind and not merely be it, not merely be your thoughts, but also listen to them, then you're in the middle state of consciousness. And the middle state's a lovely place to find yourself at any given moment, because you're suddenly listening and you're not being each thought. It's the imagined consequences of whatever problems you have in your life. Instead of being the imagined consequence and feeling it in your body, you're observing it. And this is a nice distinction, because when you go to a movie theater and you watch someone in a fist fight and he gets stabbed, you're not bleeding to death, you're watching it. But if you are in a knife fight and you get stabbed and you believe you're your mind, you're dying instead of watching your death. And at first you might think, well, wait a second, that sounds odd. You know, I want to be in my life. It sounds like it's more passionate or more exciting. You know, like I have a chip in the game. I'm not sort of above the game. I'm not distracted or detached. I'm actually living my life. And so the interesting thing about your point is that it opens up the possibility that you could be both. In other words, it's almost like you're agreeing that it's possible that you could watch your mind. And so I invite you to try it. Try watching your mind and see which one feels better. The nice thing about you have the opportunity to be both. You can be totally attached to each thought you have and experience them in first person, if you will. But sometimes, and for many people, that is actually, it can become overwhelming. That's what panic is. That's what many kinds of fear are. And if you can learn to be watching yourself live your life, if you can be a watcher, it opens up the possibility of some emotional or freedom, because when you're watching your life, and again, I'm not saying you shouldn't also be your life, but when you're watching your life, you sort of have a disinterested or maybe not so panicked close vicinity to fear or anger or jealousy. It's more like you're a good friend of yours giving you advice. They can see you're living your life and they can more calmly tell you, no, don't stick your finger in the electric socket. No, don't do this or don't do that. And that it's a little different because that's their opinion. And when you're a watcher, you listen and watch and you see yourself, but there's no opinion to it. You just sort of instinctively know that some of your decisions are silly and you adjust them. And so it's sort of a wisdom place. The watcher is a wisdom place. And it's also a joyful place. Because you're watching, you're not so focused on your problem of the thought of the moment. And by moment, I mean this moment, this moment, this moment. But you're also seeing what's around you in the movie. The beautiful flowers, beautiful people. Because you're not as interested in just your particular thought at each given moment, but you have more of a global or wisdom view of the all. And so it's more of a relaxed thing. It really is in some ways like a watcher of a movie. You get to see the scenery around you and the architecture. You get to hear all of the sounds, not just your voice telling you what your problems are. You get to live in a more joyful place at any moment when you're aware of watching and not just what your thoughts are. And so that's a middle state, and I invite you to try it. And then there's another state which you might go to directly. I'm not telling you time or knowledge or ability will play any role in this. It's all grace. The grace will come to you when it does. And the second or the third, not the middle, but the highest sort of consciousness is when you wake up in a moment or a consecutive series of moments, when you are literally unthought bound. You're not even listening to your thoughts. You're just complete perception of the all, meaning that you're sort of in a place where you're 100% present, but your mind has no thoughts. And so you're in pure joy. You're in a pure one-on-one relationship with God if you're religious, with the all in terms of distance and time if you're a scientist. And you're present to the fascinating, the unlabeled, unidentified unlimited experience of living without a point of view in the knowledge sense, in the personality sense, in the I am Dan sense. You are living without that personality in that single solitary moment or series of moments, moment itself even being undefined. And so you're just present in a relationship with a relationship or experience of God, if you're religious, without knowing anything about God. It's not necessary that you even read the word God in a book anywhere, or that you adhere to any individual relationship. Or said another way, if you're a scientist, you are in the presence of the unifying equation without defining or understanding it. You're in the presence of the unifying equation without defining or understanding it. And experience is, I would call it a higher form of knowledge, but knowledge is limited to the library in which you have access to. And so in that sense, it's not knowledge, but it's a natural wisdom that an unfocused presence with an unlimited wisdom. That's what being with God is, versus believing in God or knowing about God. That's what being in the universe as an observational being or experiential being is, without any definition of what that means. It's just the pure experience without limitation. It's the unconstricted consciousness. And the mind is the constricted consciousness. It's the idea that there's some thought that limits the spectrum of observation that you're focusing on, that causes the constriction in your, not only your thought patterns, but in your internal state. The human mind is a constricted consciousness, and the experience of God is unconstricted. The experience of the all, the experience of an operational unifying equation, is an unconstricted experience of life, of living. And I'm using words to talk about something that you don't need words to experience. So I'm just sort of pointing at something. And so I think the main idea that maybe that you can consume here is that you might just start to notice that you're actually hanging on every thought that you have, and that it's the very attention that you're paying to every thought you have, even the thought that there's a better way to think, or even the thought that you want the freedom that I'm talking about. You're hanging on every thought in a way that it is itself the constricted consciousness. And so it is the pain of the limited consciousness that you have that's causing you to want to be with the unifying equation, or with God. And it's also what's keeping you from being there. And letting go is what the grace is, the grace of letting go. And so you can be a watcher, or you can be the unconstricted consciousness. All right, that's what I have for today. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.